This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode of All Time 11 right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host again. This week I'm joined by the former Celtic, Ross County and Motherwell man, Paul Lawson, current manager of Formartine United. How are we getting on, Paul? Thanks very much for coming on. Pleasure to have you.
No, it's a pleasure to be on. You can see I've just finished training, so I've got the training gear on. But no, it's a pleasure to be on.
No worries, mate. How you been? You all right?
Not too bad yet. It's obviously, like everyone, difficult times, but we're getting on with things as best we can. I think we said off camera, we're in fortunate position. We're in tier 2, so we're not in a bad position.
And obviously the football, your league's starting up next week. So what's the kind of hopes going into the season?
I think an improvement on last year. Obviously, that's what you always aim for. I think up in this neck of the woods, people look at our squad and think we should be challenging at the top of the league, and that is obviously the aim for the club eventually, to challenge for the league and hopefully at some point gain promotion into the football league. So that's the aim. But I think at the moment it's small steps and initially just make an improvement on last year.
Yeah, is there a lot of pressure in Highland League teams now because of like the success of like Cove Rangers, for example, like how well they've done going through the leagues? Is there a lot of pressure on you now?
I wouldn't say pressure. I think now teams think they're not scared to go and do it now, if that makes sense. You know, Cove have done unbelievable, and teams are now saying, well, you know, is that, you know, could we do something similar? So I think the hunger's there to gain promotion, where I think maybe perhaps it wasn't quite there previously, but people seen that how well Cove have done, and you know, it is possible.
Yeah, obviously you started off at Celtic, coming through young age. What age were you when you went to Celtic?
Well, I signed as a schoolboy at 14, but obviously living in Aberdeen, I didn't move down till I was 16. I joined on the full time on the ground staff.
Yeah, who were your kind of mentors like coming through? Like who were the kind of good coaches?
Well, the main one, obviously, when you first go down and you're in the U team, Willie McStay.
Yeah.
He's one, but you know, one of my under-15s managers at Pat Gardner. I've got to give him a mention. He was really good. And then when we went in full time, Willie and Chris McCart took the youth team at that time, so they were excellent. You know, Willie as a coach was unbelievable and taught you a lot of the game. And everyone will probably say everyone hates doing shape and things like that as players, but you know, it's now you look back and think, you know, he taught me the game, and then you kind of progress a bit, and Kenny McDowell was in charge of the reserves, and again, different style of coach to Willie, but you know, just as good in a sense of setting you up to be a man in a sense, and setting you up to have a career in the game. And so I think the two of them early on were excellent.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you came through pretty well when you made your debut for the first team in 2005 against Dunfermline. Come off the bench, like how big a buzz was that to did you grow up supporting Celtic? Yeah.
No, I didn't know, but I think ultimately is when you sign at 14, your aim is to get in the first team. You know, that's what you want, and it took me probably longer than some boys. You know, some boys maybe break in at 18, 19, but I had to wait a bit longer. Some might say that hampered me. You know, I didn't start my career till sort of 21, 22. But no, I mean, making your debut is special. Obviously, everyone wants to do it in front of 60,000 at Celtic Park, but that wasn't to be. But no, it was still special the same. Obviously, you want to be a first team regular, and that was the aim and that was the dream. But that wasn't to be. But I can still say, you know, I've played in the first team there.
Brilliant. Obviously, you had a pretty good career. Obviously, Ross County was probably the best time of your career as well. I just want to touch on the cup final, the run to the cup final. What was the memories for that campaign?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what, the league campaign that year was really good up and probably till about February time. We were right at the top of the league, but then the cup run kind of took over, and as you can imagine, at the time we were in the first division, and it was a big thing, especially the semi-final knocking out Celtic at the time, and so I think that that took the shine off, and our league performances dipped, which was, to be expected in a sense, the way things were. But no, I think it's been said that everyone kind of says, "Oh, your cup final was the semi-final really against Celtic, beating Celtic," and it is a regret probably of a lot of the boys that didn't really turn up on the day in the final. And don't get me wrong, it was a very, very good Dundee United team.
Yeah.
Some of that team went on to better things down south, etc. But no, I think we didn't really play that well on the day. And when we lose the first goal, I don't think we recovered from that.
Definitely. Well, to make a wee start with your team, like obviously, are you picking players you played with or played against?
Played with.
Which
wasn't easy at all.
And as well as that, have we got a formation in mind of how you want to set up?
Well, I was really struggling. I want to go 1-4-5, whatever. Try to get all the attacking players in as you do. But no, I mean, I've tried to pick players that I could pick 11 Celtic players. I could pick 25 Celtic players, really, to be honest with you. I played with some great players, but I've tried to pick players from my time, probably most at Ross County and Motherwell, just purely because that was probably the best time of my career.
Yep.
Players I played with more on a regular basis rather than a couple of games here and there at Celtic. I mean, we could mention a lot, you're still in Petrovs, Paul Lamberts, Neil Lennon's, guys like that, Henrik Larsson's. I didn't really play with him, but trained with him on numerous occasions. But I wanted to go with boys that I played with and had some special times with.
Brilliant. Let's make a start. Who we got in nets?
This was a difficult one, and it's because the goalkeeper is a difficult one, and probably he's the one from Celtic that I'll go with, and it's quite apt that it's a week later. But David Marshall,
right? Okay.
He was a youth team goalie, and then Marshall really got fast tracked into the first team. So, but him, Michael McGovern were two top keepers, and I played with Mick at Ross County, and he's just missed out. But goalkeeper is a tough one. I'll give a special mention to Michael Fraser as well. He was part of our league winning team at Ross County. So just missed out, but I don't think anyone can complain if Big Marshy's picked them.
Do you remember his game against Barcelona?
Yeah.
How good was it, that game?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that, it's at that time all the boys in the youth team are just so buzzing for him. And like I say, it's one of those ones you get in. He was always a good keeper, but he obviously got in, not by default, but through suspensions, etc. So, but he took his chance, and he's had an unbelievable career. And last week, obviously, just has topped off and showed how good he is.
What was good about it? What was the best thing about him? His kind of shot stopping or his presence?
I think his presence, but I think at such a young age, he was at 17. He was a man, and I think that game in Barcelona showed that. And people talk about goalkeepers don't sort of peak until sort of late 20s into their 30s when they gain the experience and all that. But Marshy just seemed so far ahead of his time. It was unbelievable, and comfortable on the ball as well. And obviously, you're going back maybe 15 years or so, and you see nowadays keepers have to be good on the ball. But go back then, Marshy was very comfortable, and but just his size, his frame. Filled the goals and shot stop and probably everything. Just top keeper.
Brilliant. We'll move on to right back. Who's there?
Well, I've got my back three.
Oh, you've got my back three?
Only because, like I say, I'm trying to fit in more probably midfield players than that. So I've kind of right-sided centre half. I've gone with Scott Boyd.
Yep. Okay.
Now, I'd played with Boydie for a lot of times for a lot of years. At Ross County, and the two of us signed the same year, and so part of the two league winning teams we were part of, and he just he doesn't look like a strong lad, doesn't look as composed on the ball, but he actually is, and he went when he left Ross County, he went to Kilmarnock and done great. And but I just think he was at the heart of our defence for a number of years, and we had a lot of good times together.
Yeah, he's a legend up there, isn't he?
Yeah, you could say that. I think it was one game he found himself on the right flank and he threw in a Cruyff and put a cross in or something. I can't remember it, but the fans nicknamed him the Ginger Pele. So, and he was up there. He got a testimonial and that, which he fully deserved. And he's certainly a legend up there. And enjoyed my time playing alongside him.
Brilliant. We'll move on to in the middle of the defence and the centre back. Who's there?
Put Grant Monroe.
Okay.
Him and Scott obviously formed a great partnership. Yeah. The year we won the first division, I think when he signed for ourselves, a lot of people said he was finished. He'd left Inverness and he signed for us, and he came. And Grant is probably similar to myself. He was never quick, so it's that automatic thing when you go over 30, people say you've lost a yard of pace, but if you've never had it, you can't lose it. So Grant, he was kind of in that boat, and he signed for us, and he was superb for us for a couple of years, and even when we gained promotion in the Premier League that season, he was excellent as well. And great lad. We he was part of our crew that travelled in together every day, and but like I say, him and Scott at the heart of our defence was brilliant, and it gives you the confidence. Me being a centre midfielder, you've got the guys behind you, and they can do a job.
Brilliant. We'll move on to the left side of the back three. Who finishes up with defence?
I've stuck Stevie Hamilton from the time at Motherwell. I know he's a left back, but again, like I say, I'm trying to fit players in. But Stevie, he was always going to be in there. Great ability. Probably one of these players, and there's probably another lad in the team later on. Until you play with him, you don't realise how good he is.
Yeah.
He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. But when you sign for the club and see him in training and see him week in, week out, you realise what a top player. And probably, I would have said, probably more caps for Scotland. I would have said he should have had. But again, a great lad, a mainstay in the Motherwell team, and he's a legend there. And he would get in my team.
What was it about him as well? Just his leadership, which I think he was good in the dressing room and just a good guy for the likes of you.
Yeah, great in the dressing room. Any new player comes in, you're treated like straight away. You're treated as if you'd been there for years, but it was a good dressing room as a whole at Motherwell. Don't get me wrong, but obviously the experienced boys tend to run a dressing room, and he was one of them, but in a good way. Not in a way where you think he's a bit of an arse, but like I say, in a good way, and like I say, on the training ground, excellent. Great ability, and just a solid left back, and I think a lot of people who have played with him would have him in their team, so that says a lot.
Brilliant. Solid backline so far, but we'll move on to the midfield. How are you lining up in midfield?
I'm going with a 4.
A 4, right? Okay.
Although saying that, my right midfield, he'll kill me if I'm saying he's a wing back, because he's definitely not. But it's only way I can get him in the team.
Right. Let's start with right midfield.
Richard Britton.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Now, Richie probably would class himself as a centre midfielder, and he probably played there a lot in his early days, Livingston. But when he came to Ross County, he spent a lot of time on the right side, but done just as good a job. The captain of the club for years, and he led by example, really. Moany, very Moany.
Was he?
Like you wouldn't believe. Not that I wasn't myself, but I think we kind of all drove each other on at that time. But no, I think again another legend up at Ross County, and the fans have got nothing but good things to say about him. And likewise, I think a lot of the boys who've played with him all know that he loves his football. He was dedicated, and he scored some real important goals. And I think the one game for me is probably the semi-final against Celtic.
Yeah.
He was outstanding that day, and it goes unnoticed obviously because he didn't score or he didn't get the headlines. But I think he was our best player on that day.
Definitely. Brilliant. We'll move on to the right centre midfielder. Who's in there?
Lasley.
Keith Lasley.
So, yeah, again, like I said about Hammy, it wasn't until I joined Motherwell that you realise what a good player he was. Great captain, great leader, which was important. But for me, he along with Hammy and a few of the other boys, they run the dressing room, but again, in a very good way, and a great captain, and but more importantly, a really good player and good to play alongside. His attitude, second to none, and fitness levels unbelievable. You can see he played till his late 30s, and he was still as fit as MD in the team, which is unbelievable. And barely missed a day's training. He was always there, and it's somebody you'd want in the trenches, that's for sure.
Yeah, see that team spirit model, like with the likes of like Keith Lasley and Stevie Hamill and a few more. Like, how important was that for the likes of you getting in there? Like, obviously you've been for another team like Ross County that had a good team spirit, but how important was that for you to have those kind of players in there to help you through it?
Yeah, massively. I think when I first met Stuart McCall before I signed, he was speaking about the dressing room and the good team spirit, but part of me was thinking, well, obviously he's going to tell me that, he's wanting to sign me, so he's going to say it's good. But the minute you walk in, you're welcome straight away, and you're one of the boys. And a week or two into pre-season, Laz goes and speaks to the manager and gets us to get a Monday off because he was having a barbecue at his house on the Sunday because he wanted all the players and their partners down to the house so that everyone can meet, and sort of the new players, partners can meet everyone else, and so just things like that I thought was
really
great.
Good,
and, yeah, no, I thought it was really good and a great idea. And obviously the manager has to take credit as well for giving us the day off, so we could have had a few, but no, I think straight away, so you feel part of it. And yeah, my time at Motherwell wasn't great in terms of personally injuries and form, but these guys didn't. It would be easy for them to say, not toss you aside, but if you're not in the team injured, that you're not part of things. But you're, there's not at one point that I feel out of there.
Brilliant. We'll move on to the left side of centre midfield. Who have you got with partner Keith?
Well, we touched on off camera. I want to say Paul Lambert, obviously because everyone knows how good a player he was. He's won the European Cup. Now, we speak about Celtic players, and I didn't play long enough with a lot of them, but I spent a season in the reserves with Lambo just as he was coming to the end of his career. He was going through his coaching badges, but he was still on the register as a player at the club, and rather than just sit about and train and whatever, he still wanted to play games, which is great. So he spent a year playing with our reserve team, and that was unbelievable. Playing alongside him, somebody you look up to, somebody you learn from. So I'll slide him in. That was a late change because I did have Stuart Kettlewell in there. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Only I think a couple of my best seasons at Ross County was playing with Stuart beside me. Probably he'll say he's a better player. He is. He's a much better player than people give him credit for. But he certainly did do the dirty work. Fight my battles for me. Win the tackles for me. He done all that. He protected me. I'm not, so he just narrowly missed out. But I'm sure he wouldn't complain when I say Paul Lambert pipped him.
Mm-hmm. Was there any kind of Paul Lambert stories about his time, like particularly like Borussia Dortmund? Would they talk to you about his career? He
would always throw out the medal shout here and there, and things like that. But very humble guy at the same time, which is great, and just showed you the passion he had for the game. He could have easily, what was he, 36 maybe or whatever. He could easily just sat there and trained the odd day, but he was still wanting to play, and he was still as enthusiastic as MD in the reserves, and setting you up to be a Celtic player in a sense. Okay is not good enough. You need to win every week, and you need to play well, and all that. And he along with Kerry McDowell in the reserves, they certainly drummed that into you. So it was good times. Yeah,
but he kind of be the player you kind of modelled your game on when you were coming through at Celtic.
I think probably eventually, yeah. It's not something I particularly looked at when I was really young. And people probably, when you're coming through, because I'm a defensive midfielder, people automatically go Neil Lennon or Paul Lambert. It's a natural thing, but it wasn't something I done deliberately. But then when you train alongside him and play alongside him, he just keeps the ball. He doesn't give the ball away. And that was his role in the team, to break things up and play and let the boys in front go and do their bit. And that's what I eventually started to do. People say about my range of passing, etc. But ultimately, as a defensive midfielder, that's your role. Break up play and let the boys in front of you go and do their job.
Brilliant. We'll move on to the left midfield.
Again, probably not a natural wing back, but I have to put him in as Iain Vigurs.
Mm-hmm.
Another, but unbelievable ability. Probably, and it's not disrespect. He probably could play higher. He's one of these guys who'll take the ball anywhere. He'll give the ball away 10 times and he'll still want it. He won't go hiding. A bit fiery, don't get me wrong. But no, great ability. And again, part of a successful Ross County team that we had. So, I have to put him in there. And I think, again, a lot of boys that have played alongside him will say the same. His ability is not in question. Sometimes temperament might be, but no, I played with both Ross County and Motherwell. Probably similar to myself, maybe didn't have as great a time at Motherwell as he would have hoped. But I think, again, the lads in the squad at the time who seen him in training, etc., would agree with me in terms of how good a player he is. Yeah,
and he's obviously still doing it now. Like, are you surprised? Were you surprised when you saw how well he's done over his career? Like, obviously, he's been at Ross County. He's been at Ross County for a good few years in his second spell. But were you surprised he's done as well for as long?
No. Let's say probably the first time he came out to Ross County, he was younger than maybe I recall, if you know what I mean. And he has seemed to be around for a long time. But when he joined us, he probably wasn't. You think his temperament would get better as he's got older, but that hasn't seemed to change. But then sometimes you think that's what makes him tick and that's what gets him going. So you wouldn't want to take that away from him.
Definitely.
But some of the things he used to do in games was unbelievable. And like I say, probably didn't have as good a time at Motherwell as what his ability should have had. But no, he's, again, you could argue some players fit certain clubs and it seems to work for him at Ross County.
Definitely. Brilliant. So we'll move on to up front. Are you going for three up top? Is it three strikers?
Up top, yeah. I'll say two wide men and a striker.
Brilliant. We'll start with your left forward.
I'll go Michael Gardown.
Right, okay.
If I didn't get him in, he'd kill me. But no, I think, I could name a heap of boys, again, that played with at Celtic. Your Aidy McGeady's, Sean Maloney's, guys like that. But I just, like I said at the start, I wanted to go with boys that I played with for a number of years, and Midge is certainly one. He can play probably right across the midfield. He could probably play, could play right across the forward line as well, and just great ability. But ultimately, he's one you want to have in the dressing room anyway.
Good character.
Great character. If you want a successful team, you want him in your dressing room, that's for sure. But again, he's, sometimes his ability gets overlooked because he's well known within the game for the pranks and the jokes, etc., and messing around. And I think everyone, again, who's played with him, I'll say the same. They would love him. He's great to have in the dressing room, but ultimately, he's a top player, and again, part of that Ross County team that won the league, and he formed a great partnership with Colin McMenamin up front, and again, he's been a legend at Ross County. The trophies he's won, and he's the record goal scorer, record appearance holder. So again, probably similar to Viggs, the club just suits him, and he's thrived up there.
Brilliant, definitely. We'll move on to the right forward.
Ivan Sproul.
Right, okay.
A player that, I mean, apparently he was on the way down when he came to us. I would have hated to have seen how quick he was when he was at Hibs. But no, he complemented my game. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed playing with him. We came in, I'd been out the Ross County team for about 3-4 months. And then in the January time, we signed himself and I got back into the team and we just seemed to kick on. And, he helped. He made some of my passes look good because of his speed. I could afford to just hit one over the top and knowing he'd get onto it. But we just seemed to click and play really well together. And, like I say, I would have hated to have seen him, how quick he was, etc. when he was at Hibs, because he was unbelievable for us. And that's 6 months that I played with him. I wish it could have been longer, but I moved on. But I really enjoyed my time playing with him, and he was a big player for us at the time.
Remember his hat trick at Ibrox?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, just
he's done it.
So quick. But again, sometimes his ability got overlooked because people just said, "Oh, he's just quick." He's a quick player. But no, he was a good player as well, good ability.
How good's that when a player that has that ability kind of on his feet, but he's also got that speed? How good a player is that to have alongside?
It's great because, like I say, he can sometimes make an average ball into a good one,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also need to have the end product, and that's what he had. And like I say, we seemed to work really well. And I knew without lifting my head, I knew where he would be. I knew where to put the ball, and it just, like I say, it just seemed to click, and it worked well for us as a team. He came in and fitted the shape we played really well. He played wide right of the three, and it just seemed to work for us.
Brilliant. We'll move on to the last position. Who's up front? Who's the striker? It
was a difficult one. I could name a load. I mean, I played with James McFadden, and he's a Scotland legend, really, isn't he? Let's be honest, and a top lad actually, top player. But I've gone with Colin McMenamin, purely for the fact that he was part of the Ross County League winning team, and like I say, he had a good partnership with Midge. Andy Barrowman's probably just missed out as well. Great. My first season at Ross County, Barra was unbelievable. Scored about 30 goals, I think, that season, and then he came back for his second stint and helped get the club to the Scottish Cup final. So he was also really good to play alongside. Probably quicker than you think, and a bit strong and very selfish in front of goal. But sometimes good strikers have to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But great lad, but like I say, just missed out just purely because Colin was part of that team, and like I say, had a good partnership with Midge. But again, another, Colin's a very good player, and he worked well in that shape that we played, and scored a lot of good goals for us.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like? What was it about him as well? Was he a kind of good finisher? Was that the first thing you noticed about his game, like how good he was in front of goal?
I think, a good finisher, but his work rate was excellent.
Yeah.
He wasn't lazy, and I think the way, like I say, the way we played, he was, at times he was up there on his own, and you have to put that shift in, and you defend from the front, as they say, or you're only as good as your striker. And him and Midge that year, like I say, were unbelievable for us, and scored some really important goals that year as well. And it was just, I think, because we played well as a team, individuals then start to thrive, and he was certainly one of them. And I think I've heard him say on record it was some of the best times of his career, and and I think everyone that was part of that group would agree.
Definitely, that Ross County team was excellent as well. But I think it's not a surprise to me that a lot of the players were Ross County players because how kind of well we work together. But is there any kind of players you haven't mentioned that kind of just miss out in the team?
Yeah, well, there's loads. I mean, John Sutton was another one.
Yeah.
I played with it both. Well, when I was on loan at St Mirren, he was there, and then when I was at Motherwell, and again, another player I don't think he gets the credit maybe he deserves. Very good player. Probably because he gets overshadowed by his brother. I don't, but again, St Mirren fans and players all say good things about him, and likewise with Motherwell. So no, he was a top player. So he's probably just missed out. And then, like I've mentioned, James McFadden. I played with Jason Scotland at St Johnstone when he was on fire, and Stevie Milne, boys like that. Paul Sheeran was another one I played with at St Johnstone. I thought was a top footballer. Again, not the quickest, but his football brain was second to none. And that was like my first loan spell and first sort of stint into professional football, and playing in that St Johnstone side was an eye opener. But some very good players, but yeah, the Celtic lot, a John Kennedy or a Sean Maloney, Craig Beattie.
Yeah,
the list's endless, to be honest. Some really good players, and it's been a pleasure to play with a lot of them, and even some Scotland under 21s.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about Scott Brown or Derek Reardon. He was a really good player, and Mark Wilson. Like I said, I could pick about 3 or 4 teams. Yeah. So I've been very lucky to play with some very good players, like I say. But I kind of went with boys that I spent the majority of my career with.
Mm-hmm. See, just as well, obviously the team's excellent, but I just want to touch on last of all who would kind of be your best manager. I think I know who it is, but just put it kind of.
I want to say Jimmy Calderwood, but
right.
I'll go with Stuart McCall.
I'm surprised.
Who did you think?
I thought Derek Adams.
No, I'll go with Stuart McCall.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I spent our time under Derek Adams was very successful, but I think there was something about Stuart McCall. Like I said, didn't have a great time at Motherwell. I really didn't. And
was it just injuries? Yeah, was it just bad
injuries, loss of form? Didn't. Mm-hmm. Again, like I said, maybe the team didn't suit me, in a sense that Stuart McCall liked to play a certain way that maybe didn't suit the way I played, but that was successful for Motherwell, and his record speaks for itself. That but he was one manager that I think, even if you're not in the team, you still liked him. Now that's a skill, and find that. Try to do something. It's hard myself. You feel like when you're leaving boys out, but I just think he was very well liked by all, but Jimmy Calderwood, I need to give a special mention to him. Loved my time. It was very short and sweet when he was at Ross County, but great manager and great to have about the place. Great banter, and I don't think he really got a job after Ross County, which was a shame. But no, I think obviously you could mention Derek Adams, but I think I really enjoyed working with Stuart McCall.
Brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed that, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on.
No, it's been a pleasure. It wasn't easy to pick, but no, I like I say, when you think of some of the names that I've played with,
because then there'll not be many players of a list like that.
Yeah, no, it's like I've even like Janino or somebody like that, and like we said before we came on, a Nakamura or players like that were unbelievable, and even just training with these guys was a privilege, and I remember playing a bounce game once, and do you remember the guy that played with Barcelona, De La Peña?
Yeah, I vaguely remember the name. Yeah,
little midfielder, and he'd came over and trial Celtic, so we played in a bounce game at Airdrie, and this guy was unbelievable. Just absolutely ran the game, pinging the ball left to right, and just ridiculous. But that's one game, and so I wouldn't want to pick people like that off one game. So let's say I went with people I've played with for a sustained period of time.
It was an excellent team, and it's a team I think is well deserving. Thanks very much for coming on, Paul. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure.
No, it's a pleasure. I enjoyed it myself. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Cheers.
Cheers.